The next poem I have selected is by Haris Khalique, The Magician and the Boy. It's a very emotional poem. When first time I was reading it, I literally cried. But the next time it wasn't. So Haris Khalique is a leading Urdu poet and the English poet as well from Pakistan. He has eight collections of verses, and even during 1980s and 1990s, some of his poems were also faced censorship during Ziaul Haq, regime. And he is a University of Iowa honorary fellow in writing, and he's currently talking about, or in his poetry, about different themes which are straddling culture, politics, and human rights. So, Khalique's poem, "The Magician and the Boy," it is from his collection "No Fortune to Tell," that was published in 2019. And this poem is based on a dialogue between a magician and a boy after a bomb blast in Waziristan. So Waziristan, I've just added a map on the right side so you can see its geography. So Waziristan is actually in northwest Pakistan that's bordering with Afghanistan, and it has been subjected uh, to thousands of airstrikes, including drones, since 2001. And many of the people living there, they have become refugees in their own country. So the poem, actually, the purpose is to look at the context. The reason to provide you the context is that it will help you to understand the poem, what the poet wants to convey. So the poem talks about a boy who carries her mother's dead body and requests the magician to reconstruct her mother's body, which is cut in half, and bring her back to life the way he has cut down the bodies in half and connected him back in circus shows. So, understanding this poem helps us to understand the magnitude of violence and chaos and turmoil in Waziristan. And discussing these poems in terms of Nemo history, um, and I mean that's one of the concept that I have actually encompassed in post memory, and I mean a kind of a theoretical framework that I've suggested for my for my research. So the way that term of Nemo history, the way it subscribes to post memory, um, it actually can be defined in terms of Marek terms, who talks about the cultural memory analysis to help us to understand that very function of history in cultural studies. So that understanding of Nemo history is based on the understanding of the relationship of history and memory, and then its role with the cultural memory, in the whole. So to Tam, history and memory are two different things or two different concepts, since history is representing a very specific event in the past, and memory, it refers to the study of a past in relationship with the present in a very specific socio-cultural context. But history contributes to the production of cultural memory by giving an account of religion, literature, and myths of a certain time and space. So here, Mnemohistory is to look at the history as a cultural memory by asking two questions, like what is known of the past is in the present, and why is it that some versions of the past dominate over the others? So this poem tells us the ways, the violence altered the memories of music and culture and art in Waziristan. When I talked to like Haris' colleague about the thought process of the poem, he said that he did not refer to any specific event in the past, since he was not there, but he was just trying to aestheticize it. So, and that actually has that prosthetic sense to this poem. That actually has increased that very intensity of the poem, and that's why we may say that this poem has a more effective interpretation of violence through very metaphorical language in the poem. Like you may see, that's probably on the left side. The boy covered in the dust and smell, carrying her body's mother in the compressed sack. So that's hard for him to handle in the harsh winter, and finding his mother's body among the charred ones. So that is not fully burnt and still recognizable. So in terms of Nemo history, the effective language, uh, creates a kind of prosthetic memory that is though artificial one, but it cultivates a search, for hope, for solace, and a kind of a messiah, a savior in the time of despair among the people living in the peripheries of Pakistan too. I mean, I couldn't have got enough time. Otherwise, I would. I was thinking about sharing a few narratives, even of the local people who are producing some poetry that is quite different from this one, and they are talking about more, more about promoting their cultural values, rather focusing on those different, issues of violence and turmoil over there.
Say, so on the one hand, absolutely that there's a movement away from post-meaning in the aftermath for Chilean fiction, and towards, well, it is the aftermath still. Very much this is happening right now. These writers are coming of age to write novels right now, and speaking about what happened to them. At the same time, it's also about reframing the official narrative. So post in the sense that, just as with post 9/11, that there was an official narrative of what that meant, what the dictatorship meant, how the nation was supposedly responding to it or refusing to respond to it in some kind of supposedly positive way. And this generation saying, we don't accept that, so we're going to reframe the official narrative of the time. And I think that's, I mean, I'll let Newman respond to that in terms of post 9/11 poetry, but absolutely, there was an official American narrative about us and them, and what 9/11 itself meant at the time, that is now being reframed by South Asian writers more largely, I would say.
What I believe about, I mean, when I was defending my topic in my university, the question was asked. It was very similar, right? Then we worked on it, and then I found a few points on it. So for me, since when we talk about 9/11 and its memory, it's not the first time that these Pakistani poets have aestheticized it. They probably have went, they actually went to different countries. Maybe they have read Falling Man or the other works. So the influence of them, and then going there and then re-experiencing it. So probably there is a transformation of those memories, like they are producing again and again, you know. So what I believe that this reproduction of those memories, or re-traumatizing them again and again, make those memories actually post memories, because they are sometimes do not exist in their original forms. I think that's the simple thing. And the other thing is that I did not actually borrow that the concept of post memory as a kind of a memory that transcends between generations. Since I'm talking about just last 20 years, and that's why I have fantasized, the post, because sometimes it's really hard to identify what's memory and what is post memory. We can, and that's why I'm still working on it, and I'm very hopeful I would be able to reach some conclusion at the end of my research. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing? I would also say that post is problematic in terms of its relationship to postmodernism and the textual. And I think that one of the things that the fiction I'm looking at and this aesthetic of the Gothic is trying to get away with is just kind of the textual free play of postmodernism, and its disconnection from the materiality of the world and actual events. So I think that part of what these texts are doing is engaging with, material bodies and affect as a lived experience. So in that sense, moving post-memory away from postmodernism.